Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Nurse Babe Britt, and in today's video I am going to talk about CRNA. So if that is something that you're thinking about or interested in, please stay tuned and listen for more. Alright, so for starters, what is a CRNA? So everybody doesn't know what a CRNA is, so I want to start there. So a Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist, that is what a CRNA is. And so that is someone who has studied and gone back to school and studied in a grad level program, but they started as a registered nurse, and so they studied to provide anesthesia. You might hear them called nurse anesthetists as well, but typically you hear CRNA for short. And so they provide anesthesia to patients undergoing surgery, and so they primarily work in the OR setting. Sometimes you may see them outpatient, sometimes you may see them inpatient. You see them outpatient at surgery centers, and they can choose whatever, field they want to focus on, whether that's plastic surgery, whether that's GI, whether that's cardiac, ortho, it doesn't really matter. You see them in an OR setting. And so this is someone who's gone back and they have gone through a very rigorous program. It is not easy. It is a very complex role because you have to have a thorough understanding of how the body works. So that includes hemodynamics, that includes the different stages of shock, that includes, how to ventilate your patient, that includes so many things. So it's not as simple as putting somebody to sleep and waking them back up. You have to have a thorough understanding because there are so many things that can go wrong in the OR. And at that point, it primarily falls on the CRNA because the surgeon is sterile. And so there's only so much they can do within that sterile field. And so it falls on the CRNA. Occasionally, you may see them in the PACU setting as well when they are recovering their patients. But like I said, primarily you see them in the OR. So as far as experience goes, you do have to have experience working in the ICU as a registered nurse. You have to have your BSN in order for you to apply for these programs. The minimum experience is typically 1 year, but you can have more than 1 year experience. A lot of people choose to work in the ICU a little longer before applying for programs, but most of them say just 1 year minimum in the ICU. Some other things that helps you out, but it's not always required, is having your CCRN, and so that's your Critical Care Registered Nurse certificate, your certification. And so that is essentially it's an exam that covers all the different systems of the body. It's very in-depth knowledge that you study for, and you take it and you get your certification, and you have to renew it like every couple of years. And so that is something that helps you out. It's not always required, but everybody does not have it. So that is why I say it helps you out on those applications. It helps you stand out. There are also other certifications that you can get. It really just depends on what type of ICU you work in. So let's say you work in the cardiothoracic ICU, another certification could be cardiac surgery. And so that is an exam that you have to take as well, and you have to study for, and it focuses on cardiac surgery patients. And so that is something to think about as well. Other requirements is, like I said, you have to have your BSN, you have to have experience, you have to have shadowed a CRNA. A lot of programs have that as a requirement, and some of them say, there's a certain amount of hours that you have to have shadowed a CRNA. But even if it's not a requirement, go ahead and try to shadow someone anyway, so that way you can be certain that it is something that you're interested in, and you can get a feel of what they actually do. And so shadowing a CRNA is also a must. Also, you have to have a resume. You have to have at least 3 letters of recommendation, and that could come from someone who can speak to your work experience. It does help if you have shadowed with the CRNA. You can maybe ask the CRNA to do the letter of recommendation, or you can ask maybe a nurse practitioner or a PA that you've worked with in the ICU to do the recommendation, but it needs to be someone that speaks to your experience. Some programs may actually tell you, it can't be a CRNA, because they have only worked with you for a couple of hours. It needs to be someone that can really speak to your work experience that has worked with you a little bit longer. And so it does depend, but it could be a doctor, it could be a couple of different people, but just stay away from friends and, things like that, because of course they can't really speak to your experience, and that's not really what they're looking for. Also, essay, you do have to write an essay, and they typically give you a prompt and you have to write an essay based off of that. But have an idea of why you want to be a CRNA, why it matters to you, and what you plan to contribute to the field. Those are 3 points that you should include in your essay that can help you jumpstart your essay, and then just tailor it to whatever that specific school is looking for. The next thing is the GRE. And so a lot of schools do require the GRE, but some do not require the GRE. So just look into that. But a lot of them do, and a lot of them have a minimum score that you have to achieve on the GRE. And so just make sure you're aware of that when you're studying for your exam, and when you're taking your exam, you have something to aim for. And also along with that is the GPA requirement. So of course it can vary depending on the school, and just because they say, for example, greater than 3.0, that doesn't mean that everyone who gets into the program has a 3.0. They might have something higher. And so you also want to look at what is the average GPA for applicants for this program that are getting admitted into the program. And so if you don't have the GPA requirement, that is okay. Don't worry. You can always retake some classes. And so try to retake classes that you did not do so well in undergrad. Or if you retaken some of those classes and maybe your GPA still isn't where it needs to be or where you want it to be, consider taking additional classes, grad level classes, to help boost your GPA as well. So that is something that you can do to help, increase your chances of being a, qualified applicant. The next thing I will say is that sometimes they accept other exams besides the GRE, like the GMAT, the MAT test, and so just look into that so that way you know. So once you get all those things checked off and you've applied to the program, the next step, if you meet all of the qualifications, is an interview. So the interview is, it can be in person, it can be virtual. I think nowadays, now that things have kind of settled out with the pandemic, a lot of them are in person again. And so be prepared, dress professionally, have a copy of your resume. Even though they may already have your resume printed out, it's good to have it. And come prepared to answer questions specific to critical care patients. So some questions might be kind of tough, some not so much, but just come with a thorough understanding of the patient population, the critical care patient population, because a lot of times they will ask you questions tailored to that, as well as questions about yourself. And, of course, the basic, why do you want to be a CRNA? Tell me about yourself. Those type of things. So come prepared, make sure you dress professionally and, just come well rested. Those are my recommendations. So the CRNA programs are very competitive programs. They do have tons of applicants for every cohort. And so, just make sure that you are putting yourself in the best position to be, admitted into that program, which comes into, that goes into like retaking classes if you need to, getting involved on your unit, and, maybe doing unit council or maybe a charge nurse position or something like that, something that helps you stand out, that shows that you have gone and are willing to go the extra mile. So when you apply for programs that don't require the GRE, a lot of times they have a lot of applicants, and so keep that in mind as well, and don't limit yourself to only programs that don't require the GRE, because like I said, there's a lot of people that apply to those programs because, hey, great, I don't have to take a test. And so it's always good to weigh your options and maybe have a couple of different schools in mind that you are willing to apply to. Some might require the GRE and some might not. I say apply to all of those programs, but don't put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak, because like I said, it's very competitive and it's a very rigorous program. And so with that being said, the anesthesia programs are typically 3 years long. You cannot work as a nurse while you're in these programs. A lot of them actually make you sign an agreement that say like you will not be working. But even if they don't make you sign that, like I said, it's very rigorous, it's very expensive, and it's very hard to get into. And so you want to make sure that you are able to focus on just that when you're given the opportunity to be a part of that program. And because everybody doesn't get the chance. And so just don't Don't waste it by being distracted. Get rid of a lot of those distractions that you can get rid of. You might have to move to a different city, because there's only so many programs out there. It's not in every city. It might not be in your hometown. And so you might have to relocate. And so just be prepared for that. And the CRNA programs, they are DNP programs. And so that's why I say it's typically 3 years. At one point in time, they were MSN, and so that was 2 years, but that has been phased out. And so now the requirement is for CRNAs to be DNP prepared. And so there are CRNAs that have their masters. That does not mean that they have to go back to school or they can't work as a CRNA. That's not what that means. That just means that now, the qualifications to get into the field has changed. And so there are some programs that might be finishing up their MSN programs. Of course, those students don't have to switch track. They can just finish out that program. But from this point forward, it is a DNP program. So when you come out, you will have your doctorate. And so that is something that is a little bit new that has changed as well. So just be prepared for that. And that is pretty much the rundown of what a CRNA is, what they do, where they function, how do you get into CRNA school. The best recommendation I can give is to talk to other CRNAs. If you do not know CRNAs, network. Networking is always your best friend. So that means you can talk to some of the nurse practitioners or the PAs that you work with, that you come across. They may know someone who works in anesthesia. Even if you know an AA, anesthesia assistant, they work very closely with other CRNAs, so they can point you in the right direction to shadowing a CRNA or talking to a CRNA. And so, just ask around, ask questions, express your interest, and go from there. And so you can always ask people that's currently in programs, like what did they do to get into the program? What do they feel like helped them stand out? What is the program like? And, things of that nature. So I always recommend going to the source. It's easy to talk to people that's interested in it as well, but have not done it. But it's always great to go directly to the source because they have lived that experience. They are living that experience. They have been in your shoes, and so they do understand. Do not be discouraged by the rigor of the program, by the admission criteria. Do not be discouraged. Just take everything a day at a time. Check out things as you go, and you will get there, okay? I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment them below. Again, my name is Nurse Babe Britt. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Turn your notifications on so you can be the first one to know when I post my next video, and I will see you guys soon.